My biggest takeaway podcast.
All right, welcome to the podcast, Mr. Cavan Valance. Thank you for being on today, brother. Um, First and foremost, I want to say again, thank you for inviting me down to the event. I had an amazing time at the Hidden Summit retreat, and I cannot wait to hear about your next one. Um, but dude, I just wanted to come on and say that I appreciate everything that you've done, that you're doing for the industry. You have been an outstanding friend, an outstanding client, and you're helping a lot of people, which is why I essentially got you here today, so that we can help more people into your insight behind what it is you do, man. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It was a pleasure having you down here. It was great to see you up on stage. I know it's not your norm. You're very much, to the eye, I would imagine the systems behind the scenes, like let's get shit done, guy. But seeing you up there, you seem like you're in your natural habitat. As much as you may have been nervous or not nervous, I don't know. We never had that conversation, but you
Yeah.
crushed it and touched a lot of souls that day. So it was awesome to have you down here and be a part of the weekend. And I look forward to having you at the next one too.
Well, I appreciate that. And it's funny because, when you asked me to come down, I was like, "So do you want me to talk about like business or?" And you're like, "No, just personal." I was like, "Okay, so outside the wheelhouse. Got it."
Well, I don't even see it as outside the wheelhouse, right? Because you look at business as your life. But if someone isn't running a business, they could take those same principles to elevate their life, and that's why I wanted you to be here, right? Because before you had your businesses, multiple businesses, successful businesses, you were just mine. So like that was the connection I wanted people to make. It's like it doesn't matter where you are or where you came from. If you want to do something with your life, take these principles, whether it be from you or me or Chris, Derek, Dan, Lauren, whoever spoke, and move forward with it. Take action on it. So
I
a
think
lot
that
of people.
just goes right into like, hey, everybody's got some imposter syndrome to some degree, right?
Oh, absolutely. I deal with that shit every single day.
Right? Like, who am I to help me, help people do X, Y, or Z? So, dude, I had a blast. I feel like it was a very intimate weekend. I mean, I remember people shedding tears talking to me about their problems, and I'm like, I don't even know your last name, but man, this is like so rewarding for you to feel such a connection with what I said or someone else said, to open up and talk about it. I feel like that's what these are really about, and is to have that reset, or that checks and balances, like where you're at in life. Because I know for myself, we've kind of talked about this, dude. I run so hard, so fast all the time, and you eventually get burnt. And I know you've probably been there as well, but and we'll come back to that in a little bit. But I always like to ask trainers that come on, like, dude, what made you want to become a coach in the first place?
Well, at first it was me, right? Like I knew that I'd helped myself get healthy. Like my story goes, I was 300 pounds and lost my way, drinking, drugs, failing out of school, finding my way back and getting into this place of health and consistency. And after I lost my dad, he was 59, he passed away. And it was super sudden. We didn't have any last days with him. Like our last conversation, our
Mm.
last hug, our last meal was our last meal without even knowing it. And it hit us all in different ways, but it hit me really hard at first where I said, like, I'm never going to be that person. And I imploded and like went all in on the gym by my house and joined the gym by work and joined this CrossFit gym in between. I was running every single day and I went all in on health. And then I signed up for this half marathon. And the day I was running it, I broke down crying the last mile. And I was like, fuck, like this doesn't help anybody else but me. And whether I felt my dad there or I just had this moment, like I needed to share what I did for me with somebody else so that person would never have to be my dad either. And that's how I got started. And I didn't have certifications. I didn't, you know, I just had been through the experience at that time. I didn't really even track macros back then, but the goal was like, if I can do it, you can do it. And if you have the little bit of belief inside yourself, you can take that direction moving forward. Sort of what you just said earlier when you were talking with people for the first time, you didn't even know their last name.
Yeah.
I was talking on social media in hopes that one person would resonate with something that I
Yeah.
said so they can take a step in a direction to better themselves and they would never have to experience what I experienced, right? With losing my father at 59 so young. And from there, we just, I was a CrossFit coach for a long time. I did personal training for a little bit. And then with the pandemic and everything, my brother started Hidden Summit and I started Hidden Summit. And from there, we just were able to connect with people and bring people together so they didn't have to do it alone, but like develop this mental toughness side of it too. Because like the food side and the fitness side is easy. I can write you a plan, you can follow something, you
Yeah.
can find something that you like. But like the day you have a bad day where like you get stuck in traffic or you get a flat tire or your kids are kicking and screaming all day, like that's the day you're going to quit. And if I can help you through that time and time again, then we can see you grow and prosper to be the person that you want in your life, to bring that best self to everybody else. So
Yeah. I
that's really
always
how
say
I got here.
you don't need a coach when life's good. You need a coach when life happens.
Yeah. And I mean, like, same thing with accountability, right? It's kind of like you can talk to somebody about all the bad things that are going on, of all the good things that are going on. But like, it's if you don't have someone there that's going to shoot it to you straight, right? And not just kind of be a sounding board or absorb all of
Mhm.
your feelings, but say, like, hey, like you told me you wanted this, and this little moment that is not was not in the plan. Don't let that define you. So,
Yeah.
like, that's why we're here.
It's weighing on my heart to ask this question, so forgive me if I overstep.
No, you can ask anything, dude.
Losing your father at 59 suddenly, not having the goodbye, if you would. How did that affect you with every relationship you have in your life?
So I wish I could say like I make the most of every single relationship that I have. And to be honest, like I fucked up the the relationship I was in the longest the most. Like I took it for granted
Mm,
because I focused on me.
mm,
Now without going too far down that lane, like it was the wrong person, wrong time, different
sure.
vision, values, all of that. But I have since taken upon myself to be more present in those times that may not seem to matter.
Mm,
Holidays, embraces, conversations I may not want to be a part of in the moment. I've allowed myself to zoom out and gain perspective on life. So like the intimate times, the seemingly like non-significant times to like me moving forward and like how do I like where's this isn't part of the master plan. Those times I always take a breath and I stay present. And you never know, right? Like I could leave tomorrow to go work out and never come back. Like,
yeah,
but I don't want to live life that way where that's what I'm worrying about. I'd rather be present in the moment to say, like, well, the time I do get to spend with the people that I love and the people that I care about, whether it be Lacey or my family or colleagues or friends, um, to be present in those times because life is too damn short to be worrying about something else in those moments. So if you're fortunate enough to have those times or, just you're going through what seems like the routine of the day, like be a little bit present,
mm,
hug a little bit longer, say I love you one more time. Like those are the things that matter the most. Like my brother and I, every time I hang up the phone, I say like, I love you, man. He goes, I love you too. And I know for some brothers that may never say that.
yeah,
Like I do it to every single time because not because I worry that it's going to be the last time, because I mean it. And I think those things that we can share a little bit more if we do mean them, we can like be a little bit more vulnerable in those moments, which is really hard for me to do. I'm learning, but it's helped me like sleep better at night and
sure.
be more proud of the relationships I have and smile on the memories that we've made versus like, okay, what's the next thing I have to do for work? Like, can I get up earlier tomorrow? Like those things. Like I've done that and that's just not me anymore.
So, what do you think your biggest takeaway from your father's death was?
Man, like the thing that sits with me the most is at his wake, it was there was 2 4-hour sessions and there was a line around the block for each.
Mm.
Like my brothers and my sister and we all wore Hawaiian shirts because we like my dad loved to wear Hawaiian shirts. Now it makes more sense when you see me wear them all the time, right?
Sure.
Um, we stood up there next to him in our Hawaiian shirts, and we said thank you and gave hugs and embraced every single person that walked in, whether we knew them or not. But they all had something to say or a memory or a connection with my dad. And that impacted me the most. Like just seeing how much he cared, not just for us and the sacrifices he made for us, but the people in the community and people he worked with. Like everybody knew who Dan Valance was. And that's really powerful. So I take that and think of, in a parallel of what I just said is how can I be more present? How can I listen more? How can I connect and build those relationships with more people? Because the truth is, like, no one's going to remember my dad 100 years from now.
Sure.
But if they can remember him for who he was and the impact that he left with them in this life, like, we need more of that. We need more positive people listening, believing, supporting, caring for other people. And I guess it's a blend of what we do with Hidden Summit now. That's the impact we want to leave, but we want people to be healthy while doing it, because he
Sure.
was not. So if we can take the best of both worlds and, impact individuals' body and mind and help them elevate their life and care more for the people around them because they're taking care of themselves, that's a win.
It's funny because I started this whole podcast of my biggest takeaway because we learn something from good, bad, ugly, great, all experiences, right? And we get to choose how that experience affects us in a positive or negative manner. And so, one of the things that as we're diving into talking about death per se, is that I wanted, and I said this to other people. I've said this to therapists whenever I've seeked out counsel. Was like, I want my headstone and people to remember me as like the kindest guy I know. And I think that's probably more of a internal battle because of what I felt like maybe my dad wasn't growing up more than he is now, but like what he wasn't. And so it's funny is how things that happen to us rub off in a way that we want to put out either good or bad into the world. We just get to choose how, like, what it is we put out, right? Um, but with that said, 300 pounds going into working on yourself from a traumatic event, right? At what point did you go, I can help other people do this too? Because I know as a guy that's 300 pounds, you probably didn't think about yourself as being somebody that could help somebody else lose weight.
Oh, it wasn't at the
What
time.
was that? What was that flip? Like, what made you go, I think I can do this?
Well, I mean, at the time when I was at my worst, when I was at my lowest, when I had the biggest hill to climb or hole to climb out of, it was really, if I don't do this, what path am I going to go down? So it wasn't a matter of, me. Because look, if I'm being logical and realistic about it, like, I wasn't always fat. I was a very good athlete for a very long time, and rather quickly, through a series of bad decisions or quick decisions that were more reactive than proactive, I went down a path towards, ill health. And I knew that I could get back there. And I didn't really think about how hard it was going to be. I thought about the end line, the future. And to be truthfully present in the moment, it wasn't like this, aha, let's go back to the gym type of situation. It was, I was being, my dad happens to be involved with this too. Um, he was going with my sister as my sister was being recruited to this small school to play lacrosse, which she wasn't going to go to because she committed to another school, but they made the appointment. And that was my dad. He was like, you said you were going to go to this, so let's just go check it out just in case, you know? Um, and he met the men's lacrosse coach there, and the men's lacrosse coach happened to say, hey, we're building this new team. We're looking for players. My dad was like, oh, my sons play lacrosse. They're really good. Not mentioning, like, I was failing out of school and I was 300 pounds at this point. That's my dad. Gotta love him. So we go to the meeting and they want nothing to do with me. They wanted my brother, but he was going to study in Australia the next semester. And they were like, hey, basically in my head, they were like, you're too fat and you're too dumb. Like, your grades are terrible and you're overweight. So we don't need you here. And we're not going to, like, if you want to pay to go to school full price, like, you can. But if you want some scholarship money, then figure your shit out and come back. All I needed to hear was no. And that was what pushed me to say, fuck it. It doesn't matter what is on the other side. Like, this is an opportunity. And it was the first time I set a goal for myself in the longest time. So then started going to the gym, running to the gym, coughing and hacking up a cigarette lung on the way to the gym, like going through the motions and trying to figure out how to work out again and like how to eat food and how to say no to mac and cheese and ice cream and beer and all of that. So I, I didn't think about helping other people at all in the beginning. It was just more of like, let me prove you wrong And I did. Like, and I knew they didn't think it that way. They're just like, oh, this doesn't make sense. But for me, it was like, no, you're too fat, you're too dumb. And then they come, 3, 4 months later, and I was 40 pounds down, and they met me in a Starbucks. They didn't even recognize who I was. They're like, oh, wow, cool. Like, you did it. And then I
Did
went to school.
did you prove them wrong or did you prove yourself right?
I don't think it was like a prove myself right situation. And looking back, I say like I proved them wrong because it just made me feel better about it. But it was more
Sure.
like, it was more along the lines of, I, with my back up against the wall, let me prove to myself what is possible. It's not a right or wrong
Mhm.
situation, but it's like, to me, what can't I do? And that was the first time of many times thereafter where it wasn't that I didn't believe I could do it, but I just hadn't done it. So, like, let's just see what happens. And you keep putting one foot in front of the other, and you lose 1 pound after the next. You get 1 millisecond faster than the next. You get one better grade after the next. And things started to stack up where it says, okay, like, I'm not doing anything too far out of the norm. Like, let me just keep pushing myself forward, and good things happen. But I didn't really start thinking about helping other people as in coaching until I was like, well, I think I can make a couple extra dollars training people. And
Mhm.
and then I did that. And then one thing led to the next. And now now I run a company where we help people every single day.
Right. Over the years, you've worked with a lot of people at this point, right? Hundreds at this fact, if not more. At what percentage of people do you think that don't start or don't take action because they don't actually think that they can do it?
I, I I think, to your question, it's a large portion of people. But if I can shift the perspective slightly, is that they don't believe because they don't know how.
Mm,
Right? It's so easy to fall, and you're a marketer, so easy to fall into the trap of this quick fix or that quick
mm,
fix or this new pill or this 30-day program. When the truth is, like, it took you 4, 5, 6, 10 plus years to get to this point to actually make a decision. And then when I have a conversation, I say, hey, this might take a year. Is that really that long? And they're like, oh, I don't know. Because they know they can do it. They've been thinking about it for a very long time. But they don't believe that they're worth it, or they're scared that they're going to fail in their mind, which I believe is just a way of people saying, hey, I'm actually really comfortable where I am. I'm more comfortable where I am than the discomfort of the changes that are yet to come, because
mm,
they're unaware of them,
yeah.
right? Like, they call it fear. I'm afraid to fail. I'm afraid to succeed. I'm afraid of what I don't know. But I think fear and excitement are two sides of the same coin. Or if you're excited about something, right, Mike, you probably know exactly how it's going to go. Like, you're probably excited to come down to Florida and hang out with me and the crew. And, like, maybe you're a little bit nervous about the CrossFit workout, and maybe you're a little bit nervous about this speech, but, like, you're still, like, pumped up to be a part of something. Now, I think everything in life, if you're excited or fearful, there's in this knowledge that we lack.
So the
But,
difference between fear and excitement is knowledge or lack of knowledge.
like, the information that we have or
Yeah.
don't have about it, like, on the
I
outcome.
like that.
Yeah.
I think that
Because,
makes a lot of sense because if like, you know, you're fearful of this trip, you have nothing that you have no idea what I'm doing. So I show up at the airport with anxiety and nervousness versus like, oh, we're going to Cabo, Mexico. I'm excited because I know what's coming.
yeah, and maybe you've done it before, and you, like, know where to go, and you know all the spots, and you know what, drink to order, and you know what's the best meal on the on in the restaurant. But if you've never gone, there's probably, like, a little bit of, like, okay, like, I think this is going to be good, but you're
Mm,
still, like, a little bit slower to, like, commit because of that nervousness, like,
yeah.
that fear. I don't know, it's not fear always, but it's just the lack of knowledge. But the second time you go back, you're like, oh, I got this. I even speak Spanish now. I'm like, you know what I mean?
Right. I
So
think also too, like, I think Will Smith said it basically is that bliss is on the other side of fear. And I think it's interesting. I think back, like when I made that trip example, it's like the trips that I go on that I just show up unexpectedly are oftentimes the best trips I ever have because you get to experience it all. And yeah, there's a little nervousness that goes into it, but the I think that the best things that happen in life are a little unknowing going into it because you get to experience everything as it comes. So you have no worry, you have no dread, you have no, well, what if this or what if that, shoulda, coulda, woulda pieces. And so you just get to experience it as you go and taking that leap and whether it be in weight loss or business or vacation or doing things like on the other side of that anxiety, man, like that is the actual like goal, right? That is what you're trying to get to. And so I think that's a really good piece that ties together with that knowledge is that, yeah, there's comfortability comes with knowledge. But at the same time, don't let that fear stop you because bliss is just right there, man. It's just
Yeah.
right there.
And I think like it goes into the business realm too. You work with a lot of coaches. You've started a lot of businesses. It's not like you paved this like yellow brick road to like just perfection in any of your businesses.
Yeah.
Like you'll have good quarters and you'll have tough quarters. You'll have good
Yeah.
months and you'll have bad months. But like you don't burn it down because you don't know. You experience these moments, you
Mhm.
learn from them, and from these lessons that you learn, these moments that you can take in, absorb, and grow from, you're able to continue to prosper. You continue to move forward. And then, it's even more exciting thereafter because look at what we've gone through. Look at what we've learned. Look at how much we've grown. Um, and I just take the life experiences and I think you apply them to business or the gym or your food or relationships or whatever you go through. And it's all very similar, not, not too complicated, any of it.
Sure. I would say you're a pretty confident guy. Would you agree?
Depends on the subject, but
I assume at 300 pounds, you weren't not exactly probably the most confident person there was. Maybe you were.
no.
Oftentimes, the biggest person in the room is not the loudest, but we do know those people who are like the boldest in the room, who are willing to dance and not give two shits about people say at 100 pounds overweight, right? What made you become as confident as you are?
I think it's just about paying attention to the room and understanding people because at my largest, I would still like be fun and go out and have good times, but like I would be the least confident alone at
Mhm,
home. Like brushing your teeth before you go to bed, it's kind of like this is not the person that I want to be.
mhm,
So in investing in myself, in moving forward and pushing myself in a direction to see this growth happen, like I built more confidence outwardly with other people to help them, and then I had to find that on my own behind closed doors, right? But obviously, the more people that I helped, the more confident I got in my work, the more uh I saw my body change in the gym, the more confident I got with the movements that I've done.
mhm,
But still, like there was this gap, and I believe in experiencing loss once again. I had a relationship that was 10 years long and my ex left me, which I've spoken to you about before.
mhm,
um it was like the push I needed to be alone, and I was not alone for very long. Like I think it's a magical story, the one of Lacey and I. But in I lived with her, but alone for a very long time. And I found who I was and what was important to me. And I think that in that, I was able to be more confident in everything that I did. And that's why I go into a room and I look at you in the eye and I shake your hand and we have a conversation. And it's just one person at a time.
mhm.
That if I know that I can do that for myself, then I can helpfully connect with you. So one day you can do the same for yourself. But I think like confidence comes through experience, and experience happens in life and loss and all of those hard times. So instead of just sitting and emoting in it, you have the choice to be upset or not be upset. Someone told me that once. They were speaking about when their father passed away, someone that they looked up to came to them and said, "Hey, you can choose to be upset about this moment, or you can choose to not be upset about this moment. What are you going to do? And he was like, this might sound harsh, but he said the same thing to me when my ex left me. He was like, you can be upset about this, or you can not be upset about this. And I was like, that's all I needed to hear, because now I could focus on me
Right.
instead of focusing on the past.
You make a
It was
choice.
just another way to say, like, okay, this happened. I get to make a choice to move forward, and now I can use that. And that's really, I mean, I know I'm kind of bouncing all over the place here, but how my brain works. um, so you asked a question earlier, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but in paying attention and seeing my life from a 30,000-foot view, I get to look at the experiences that have happened to make the next choice to move forward.
Mm.
And what I find in all the people that I get to help is that they see those experiences that had happened and they hold on to them versus seeing like where they can go. So I think that's what has helped me gain confidence, is not latching on to the person I was, the decisions that I made, but rather understanding them, learning from them, or using them in a positive light to be more of the version of myself that I want to be, and bring that authenticity to the room that I'm in, or the conversation that I'm having.
How do you teach somebody or convince them to let go of that past self?
I asked them, like, what is this serving you?
Mm. Actually,
It's
it reminds
really
me
it.
of a guy that I used to work with, Brandon Grow. He was a breath coach. Because I also kind of the same concept. I started a business with my ex-wife, and obviously, when you intermingle business and personal, it gets really sticky, right? And you got to have a really great dynamic for it to truly work. But I one of the things that I got from him when I was chatting with him was to let that go of what happened, or you start to look inward and be like, is this me, is it them, like whatever it may be. He said something that was really powerful to me, and I was like, oh shit, like that. He said, instead of asking yourself why you're in the situation you're in, he said, what is this trying to teach you? It's like taking that allowed me to like let go, instead of saying, trying to figure out this why situation of like, you know, why did your dad die, or why am I here? Why am I there? Like, what is this trying to push me towards to become greater? And something else he said I thought was super powerful was, I asked him, like, what, like, again, that whole why piece. Why did this happen? Or like, why am I here? And he was like, so that you can become great for the next one. I was like, things that happen are just setting you up in life to become great at the next thing that's going to be better, because you've learned, more of what you want versus what you don't want. And then you can show up the way you want to show up for yourself, which I feel like we probably lack showing up for ourselves more than we do other people, because how you talk to other people is not how we often talk to ourselves, is it?
You're right.
All right. We're normally like, I suck, I'm the worst, but you would never say that to your friend.
Yeah.
You would
Or
never say those mean things that you say to yourself to somebody else, right? So I thought that was pretty powerful to think like, who I'm trying to become is for the next phase of my life.
yeah, I've heard it another way in a conversation. It's not why did this happen to me, but what is this happening for? Like
Mm,
what is the reason for this when you look forward? What is next? Like, I like the way it was phrased to you, like, what is this setting you up for? And there's a great lesson there, when it comes to the experiences that we have. you know it doesn't happen to us, it happens for us.
mm,
Everything, the good, the bad, the ugly. And you're right, when it comes to self-reflection, we as individuals are most likely to talk down to ourselves. And I work with a lot of parents, and I ask them, like, would you say the same thing to your child? And they're like, never. I'm like, Great. So, language is everything, and we're going to
Yeah.
learn how to speak this way slowly and surely to ourselves. Because if we just change the negative to the positive, if we ask a question that's leading us forward instead of holding us back, what can't we do? And that's I love that you've been through it. And I know that you've been through it, just the way you carry yourself. And we're both human, you and I. Like, I say shit to myself every single day where I'm like, well, I don't really mean that. That's more reactionary. So let's pause for
Right.
let's pause for a second and zoom out here. Um, but I think there's a lesson to be learned in that. That I have a client who went through a really tough. I've had two clients. I'll talk about one of them right now. He's lost someone in his life every 6 weeks this entire year. And there at this point, I just didn't have the words anymore. And I was like, hey, we're not going to do anything but do one positive thing for yourself every single day. Because people process this differently, but it's one after the next, after the next, after the next. And in his mind, he was more worried about like, what am I next? Like, is this going to happen to me? Like, he has a
Mm,
1 year old. He has two kids, one, and his son is one. Um, and I was like, hey man, this isn't the in my mind. I think it would benefit you to think about what you and I spoke about earlier, Mike. Like, how can we be more present in the moments that we have? And who is it that you want to be for your son and your daughter and your wife and your employees, the people that work for you that look up to you? Because you can't plan when our last breath on this earth is. But what we can do is like push away all the things that actually don't matter. Tracking your protein, like working out for 45 minutes every single day. Like, what can you do for yourself? How can we relieve some of that stress? And you can see that happen for a long time. And he's on the up and up, and just got back from a tough week. Setting up services for his grandmother, and he's really positive about it. So never an easy thing to go through, loss or
sure.
these tough times, but he turned it inward negatively. And I was like, well, wait, just turn it inward positively. And what can we do today to do that one little decision at a time?
What is the biggest takeaway that you've gotten from a client?
So that's a great question. I would say that, when people say that I've helped them more than the number on the scale, it really means the most, because we have conversations like this on our client calls, and rarely do we talk about food
Sure.
or fitness. But I had a client who left, and the goal for us is not to be with clients forever, but to have
Sure.
them continue down this life and be positive. And she came into some financial troubles and had a really tough year physically, suffered some loss as well. Um, and she bought a ticket for the event, and this was like about a year, almost a year since she had been with us, but she was super excited because we had never met in person. And she personally reached out to me the week before the event and wrote me like a paragraph like this via text. And she said that she couldn't come because she was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer and she was starting chemo. And this woman is the epitome of perseverance and grit. And the biggest takeaway I've ever gotten from a client was like, death can be staring you in the face, but you have the decision to like head into the storm. And she shows me that toughness every single day. So like,
Mm,
I mean, that's really what it was. It wasn't about the number on the scale, or the weight loss, or how strong she got, or the physical changes. It was, life is gonna life, and it's gonna beat you up sometimes. But hey, man, I really appreciate everything you did to show me that like I'm in control of what is my destiny and the story that I'm writing. And that was the coolest thing that ever happened to me as a coach. She's like, I may not be able to be there in person, but everything that I've learned from you over the last couple of years has set me up for success through these difficult times that lie ahead.
Hmm.
And she just messaged me this morning, like, because I posted about how Lacey and I are going to do this 20-mile ruck in a couple of weeks after we finish our flush. Yeah, you want to do it with us? Come on now, let's
You
just
know,
do it.
I'm gonna be there in spirit like she
No,
was.
it's she's gonna do it. This woman, my client, she was like, I'm in. I was like, let's go. So the
Oof.
idea is like, bring on the toughness, bring on the hurt, because we got one life to live, and I'm gonna do the things that I want to do. So
Dude, I went with Paula to um James Lawrence, Iron Cowboy. We went and stayed with him and his family, which I'm not sure if you know him at all, but the greatest dude, like the nicest family, amazing. Um, they're like, yeah, we're gonna go on this hike, and I've only been on one other hike, and it was like about killed me. It was like 14,625 feet. It was called Mount Quandary, and it about killed me. Like I both leg cramp on the way down. I had actually pulled a quad the Sunday before we hiked it. So I was like limping that leg to save it. Ran out of water. Brutal. Like altitude sickness, the works. And I was like, oh, this one's 13 miles versus the one we just did was 6. I was like, I don't know, Paula. She's like, come on. It's kids are doing it. And I'm like,
yeah, the Iron
okay,
Cowboys kids
so
are not. I'm sure
right,
James's
right.
kids are not normal kids.
Yeah, for those that don't know, Iron Cowboy, I think 2 of his probably most known feats. I come to learn he has a lot of feats that he's accomplished. 50 Ironmans, 50 days in 50 different states, and then 101 in 101 days. I think that's says
Wild.
enough right there.
Yeah.
But um being that you said that, I show up and we do the hike and we started at like 5 in the morning. And I've never walked that far ever. Like ran, I don't think I've ever ran more than a 5K, right? Bodybuilder through and through. I'm on this thing and he's telling me about these stories. And then about like mile 10, like it's starting to beat me up, right? My feet are getting pretty sore. And it's funny because I'm sitting here going, man, I really want to complain. But how can you complain to a guy that like broke his back and his foot and he still completed all of these Ironmans, right? You just can't. So it taught me actually to actually be more present and positive as I'm going through this and like, hey, like, do you're just walking. So I think it's cool to be able to like put out that adventure to do so and people having a positive thought into it versus always going into something that you've never done or something that we know is going to be difficult is like, hey, that's going to suck. I'm going to hate that. That's going to be terrible. So that's something I've actually been personally working on. And that's one of the messages that I kind of shared at the end of the speech at the Hidden Summit retreat was there's 2 words that we should cut from our vocabulary. And it's that I can't and that I hate. Because those 2 words are limiting factors on what you think you can do and what you don't want to do. And
I
if you
love it.
can reframe those pieces to where like I can do, and it's funny because coffee became successful. I moved my dad out to Texas and he was helping us and he's in the office. And my dad, like I grew up in this like hard nose, you can do anything, you just got to work hard enough. And so I'd have employees at the office say like, I can't. And then he'd turn around and be like, what'd you say? He'd be like, I can't. He'd be like, I didn't hear you. What'd you say? He's like, you can't. And then he'd be like looking at him. And I was like, you're supposed to say you don't want to because you can do it if you really wanted to.
I love that. And that
It's those old school reminders of just simply like, you only can do what you tell yourself you can do. And you can't do anything you tell yourself you can't do.
it's awesome that you say that, right? My original Instagram handle was can do push through, and push stood for progress using strength and heart. And I made that up on that race that day where I started crying. And I thought about my dad. And it was just that the message I wanted to send to people was that you can do this. Like I've always said, like, yeah, I don't know how to say I can't, because it's really that you won't. As
Right.
to your point, maybe you don't want to, but it's that you're choosing not to. Can is a choice,
Mhm.
and you may fail, but you can learn and grow. But progress happens when you have the grit and the strength and the heart to move forward, even if you don't have all the answers to it. So I think it's awesome that you brought that up, you know, and it's badass that your dad said that. The kids or the employees in the office, he's like, "What? I don't understand what you're saying."
Right.
Like,
Yeah. And
so
also there's I really learned that lesson, I think, when I was 15, like truly set in. We were working on an old 85 Chevrolet pickup truck, and he was underneath it, and we were basically reconnecting the alternator. And he basically had to lift the part of the engine up for me to put in the bolt. And he was like, "When I say put this bolt in that place," and I was like, "Okay." And I'm like standing outside the truck, just like leaning over, I'm just gonna put it in because it's gonna be easy. Nothing working on engines easy. Especially when you're half-assing it in the garage, right?
right.
So he was like, "All right," you can hear him straining. He's like, "All right, put it in." And I was like, "I can't." And he was like, "If you don't figure it out, this is going to crush me." And the first thing I thought was like, get in there and figure it out. So then I jumped up in the bed of the truck. I'm moving around. I'm using strength and I'm like figuring out and I could put it in. And he was like, "See, you can do it." And I was like, would he put himself in a compromised position or was he teach me a lesson here? I think it was
Sounds
probably a
like
little
both.
both,
It sounds like
being
both.
his redneck self. Um, but that was like a big lesson that I learned that day was like, you can. It's just how much energy and effort you gonna put into making it happen. You're gonna
Right.
half-ass it, yeah, you're probably not gonna be able to do it very good or do it at all. But if you put forth the energy and effort, like you can. I never thought in a million years that this guy from Alabama that grew up on a farm riding horses every Sunday would, be on his fourth business and being successful at that. And so when people say like, I just don't know, or that imposter hits in, it's like, dude, ain't nobody get it better than me. Like I understand it. Um, but there becomes a time and point where you have to make a choice. You have to make a decision. And I think those that succeed are the ones that go, "Hey, I'm going to give it a go, regardless what the outcome is going to be. I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to go for it."
Yeah. I mean, I'm right there with you. Two different, totally different stories, but little did I ever believe, yet even think, that I would be in a position that I'm in now.
Mm.
Right. Lacey and I were talking. It's funny. We were talking about how the American dream isn't what it used to be, and how
Mm-mm.
millennials these days are, packing everything up and moving into vans and traveling across the country. But 40, 50 years ago, our parents and grandparents would have been like,
Yeah.
"You're a bunch of poor hippies. What are you guys doing?" And I think that the truth is like, you can build the life that you want to build regardless of where you came from or what your circumstances are. But it's just a matter of figuring it out. We live in the age of endless information. When someone on my team comes to me and they're like, "I don't know how to do this," I'm like, "Have you looked up how to do it yet?" I'll coach them on it. But if it's a simple, silly question, I'm like, "Really? Google, YouTube, ChatGPT? Like, you can't figure this out? What are we doing right now?" And it doesn't happen often, luckily. But there are a lot of people who sit there and they're like, I used to. I said, "Life's not fair. This is the life I have. I'm 300 pounds. I have no money. I have all this debt. Everybody I know is moving onward and upward in life." And then I decided to figure it out. Like you decided to figure it out. And I guess, what I want to share with everybody, and I think you would agree and have the same sentiment, is that you and I wake up and we still figure it out every single day. It's not like, "Oh, this is easy."
Yeah. I
And
think a lot of people think like when they see somebody that might have some more success in different areas than they have, that like they have it figured out. And it's like, No, I've just gone through more shit. I've gone through more problems and have tried to fix those problems more than probably the average person. But the only way I was able to figure out those problems was taking the chance and giving myself an opportunity to have problems,
Right.
getting out of that comfort zone, right? Because it's easy to do nothing. Like that is really easy. But that's just not the life that hell, that's not what I was taught. And that's just not the life that I want. I've never been a person that was like settled for complacency. I'm always thinking about, okay, what's next? What else can we do? How can I improve? How can I be better? How can I keep showing up for myself and, my peers, my loved ones? Um, which brings me to another great point that I want to bring up. What is the biggest takeaway that you want people to get from you?
That you can do anything that you put your heart and mind to, really. It might sound cliche and simple, but I mean, you can build your dream life. You can build your dream body. You can have that family. You can have that career. You can have that business. You can have multiple homes if that's what you want. You could travel the world if that's what you want to do. But it all starts with you. So my whole thing, and it's like maybe this is why we've had limited success, is that I think I can help anybody. I really fucking do. Because life is moving at a million miles an hour. But the truth is that if we slow down and we don't try and keep up in the rat race that is life, we can figure out how to use the energy that we have to put our best foot forward every single day while experiencing life and making those memories that I spoke of earlier along the way. And I think like I'm finally getting into that groove myself, which might sound weird because like, oh, how do you help people with this then? Well, I'm still learning. I think life is a one big lesson, and if you're open to receiving that information, you can apply it one day after the next. So that's really what I want, is that you can be a very kind, caring person, that you can work your ass off. If you want to do it, 12 hours a day, 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, and that works for you, great. If you want to work, you know, 8 hours a day, 3 days a week, like, and you still see the progress you want to see, that's fine too. But let's figure out like what your goals are, where you are, and then fill the gap by bridging it from A to Z, and we'll take it one step at a time. That's how I look at life. That's what I want to be remembered by.
What does slowing down look like for you?
Oh man, it's really hard for me to do. But I'm working on it. I think it's
You think
realize
moving from New York was the first step?
I think it helped, but again, like I think for me personally, it's about delegating
Mm,
and giving my expertise to others so they can figure it out, and then managing those, because I feel like it gives me more reach. Um it's not trying to be anybody else, right? This world that we live in has been created by these systems, and these systems are who can do the most the fastest, who can do the most the fastest and the longest. And I just fucking burn out, dude. Like I don't know if you're like that at all. Like Lacey, she could work all day, all right, all day every day on like 10 different things, and I'm like 2 hours in, I'm like, I'm fucking dead. Like I need a recharge. Like I don't know. Like I'm really productive in those 2 hours.
sure.
But for me, recharging, slowing down looks like having my mornings, setting my mind up for the day, going for a walk, hopping in the ice, like not touching work until the sun comes up, right? It could be a little bit of a workout in the middle of the day. It could be literally doing nothing for an hour. It could be, like I'm not doing shit this week, but then the next week I'll like 10x the work anybody else is going to do. But it's about understanding where I'm at in the moment and knowing that if I stop right now, the business isn't going to burn down. It's going to be there tomorrow.
Mhm.
The clients are going to be there tomorrow. And I'm going to be better for them, for everybody. Because if I'm not at 100%, how the hell are they going to be at 100%? So it's just kind of like knowing my body, when it can give and when I need to like recharge. because we are go go go. I mean, that's like in my DNA. Like being from New York, it's kind of like how fast can we get things done?
Yeah.
It's just you live there for a bit, you got it. And I just need to know, like, hey, like if I do nothing for a little bit, that's all right. I don't have like I had no plans. No, we don't need to like go on a break on vacation. We don't need to like have anything set up. Literally just be. I mean, we we call it raw dogging it, just like sitting there, silence, no book,
Jack
no
Jack shit.
phone. Yeah, just like my brain is just kind of like, let me reset, let me breathe, let me be with my thoughts, let me think clearly. And that does a lot of good for me. So I know it's not this like, Cavan, do you have this perfect plan to like recharge and like take a step back? No, it's just like if I'm not doing the work at the level I know I can, like I stop doing it and I come back when I'm ready to do it.
Do you got any hobbies that you have that are not fitness?
Not so much anymore. I mean, my guitar is right here. I used to play a lot of music,
Okay.
but that it's another thing. I'm trying to build back into that, like making time to create and escape, but I haven't yet. So I like to cook. I like to bake bread, actually. Yeah, I picked that up during COVID. It was just like, what hobby can I do right now? Let me learn how to make sourdough bread like the rest of the world. Um, but music, probably be number one to pick up the guitar and play a little bit again. Um,
Okay. I didn't see that, but
mhm.
I could see that at the same time.
Yeah, dude. I went to music school. I went
Oh
to the
shit. Okay.
I went to the
Very
Aaron
cool.
Copeland School of Music. I was going to be a vocal music teacher. Um, Played in bands, sang at Carnegie Hall. So like it's in there somewhere, but if you don't use it, if
Interesting.
you don't use it, you lose it, right? So,
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, but yeah. I mean, and simply, I like to my whole theory and what I'm creating, and I'm going to share this in a couple of weeks. I'm going to document the whole thing. Is do less to see more
Mm,
happen in your life, right? Progress over time means seriously over time. And that's what we say at Hid Summit. You can live a life and become better by using this progress over time mindset, body and mind. And I'm going to document the whole thing because I realize I haven't. It's all stories. It's
yeah.
all about what they did 15 years ago.
Mhm.
And obviously there's a lot of go, go, go and like working at one job to make this other one. And the pandemic happened. We created Hidden Summit and then we hustled and we built this like every single day. But man, I really believe like I can work less and see some major progress because that's just how my body works,
Sure.
my mind works. So what I'm going to do is starting November 6th, Lacey and I are going to do this flush diet for 14 days, right? So what it is, and its roots is a caloric surplus, right? So high carb, moderate protein, moderate fat, with minimal training, right? So lots of walking. We'll do 3 days a week of like zone two hypertrophy training. Um, and what we'll do is really just try and decrease the inflammation in our body.
Mhm.
So when we can do that for a long period of time, then we can find out like, well, what is causing us the most stress and like continue to work on those areas
Yep.
because we want to lower and diminish that inflammation. And then over time, what we'll be able to do is put ourselves in a position to then ramp back up to the style of training that we want, to the food that we want. And I'm going to document the whole thing because I
Yeah.
believe that if I can take away some of the digestive stress and the physical stress from training and really play around with and get creative with my work schedule, I can feel more energized in those hours that I do work that versus like, okay, I run my own business and let me work 16 days a week, 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. And then, guaranteed like 1 week out of each month, I'm going to burn out.
Yep.
So it might sound crazy, but
No, I
got
mean
it.
it's funny because like in my own personal experience, the harder I go, the worse I look. And I find it a lot just coming from a bodybuilding background. When you get down to that low body fat percentage, like you see every meal you eat, right? You see every thought you think in your physique. Because you're with paper thin skin, everything becomes transparent, right? There's nothing hides anything. And so I would find that like when I would do jujitsu, my body, I would look terrible. because I'm running at such a high stress rate inside that sport, because it's an hour of high stress, because it's this nonstop worry of this, that, protection, whatever, right? And then I would walk, and that was my cardio. I look the best ever. And it's like, here I am, busting my ass to look the best that I can. But when I would do less, my mindset was in a better place. And because the mind controls all, I looked simply better because I was in a better state of mind.
Yeah.
So I wholeheartedly agree with that. And also, too, I think one of the things, if you have not thought about what you might learn along the way, is that you'll be able to start to see what foods affect you in different ways. And so you might find where like this food causes more inflammation than this one, because whenever you create that pure consistency, you're able to see, well, maybe potatoes don't fit as good with me as rice does, or maybe cream of rice is better than oatmeal. And you'll get to learn your body in a own different way, because I've gotten to the point now, after eating our road make containers for the last 15 years, like I know exactly, like, potatoes don't sit well with me as much as like rice might, right? Or things like that. So I know based on what I ate how I'm expected to feel afterwards. Um, and I think that the less is more is something I've come to realize over the years, that the more stressed I am, I don't care how hard I work. It's not going to change my appearance. It's actually might make it worse. Because obviously you get into all the hormones and cortisol and things like that, it really starts to tie into those things. So I'm excited to see how that works for you guys. I'm excited to see the progress of that, man.
Yeah, I'm excited to document it. And you're right. Like, there's going to be this learning curve of, okay, now that I can come off of this flush plan and start to, I'll just use the word normalize my nutrition. When I add things back in, that's when we get to pay attention. That's when we
Mhm.
experience those foods again and we see what serves us or what doesn't serve us. So looking forward to it as well. It's gonna be a fun month. We're gonna sprinkle that 20-mile race in or walk in
Just
at the end of the
sprinkle
flush.
that in
Yeah,
there.
just
Yeah.
hey now, that'll be as intense as it gets. My feet will hate me, but oh yeah, we do it for a good cause and a good person.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Well, dude, I appreciate your time, man. I appreciate you coming on. Again, thank you. And where can we find you?
You can find me on Instagram. It's at Cavan TV. That's at CAVAN TV _. And you can just shoot me a DM if you guys have any questions, follow up. I'm on the one answering all of my messages, and I'm here to have those conversations. So you can also follow us at Hidden Summit _ if you're interested in any coaching, lifestyle, mind, and body. But we're there to help you, and hopefully you enjoy what we're putting out there.
Absolutely. Do you have a date on the new retreat yet?
We don't have a date on the new retreat. It'll be probably the weekend after the CrossFit Games in August. Probably. I say that because I don't have the hotel locked down. We might do a
Yep.
location change. Have a couple of cool spots we're looking at, a little bit closer to the water, and
Nice.
then we'll go from there.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate it. Y'all give them a follow. Stay up. You'll definitely want to hit up that retreat. If you haven't been to one, it's definitely an amazing one to go to. So again, thanks, Kevin. I appreciate it, bud.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate you having me on. See you later.
My biggest takeaway podcast